So for myself, I'm Latina, born and raised in Long Beach. My dad is from Mexico, my mom is from Guatemala, and I grew up in a home where my dad was very abusive to my mom. If my dad didn't get his way or if things didn't happen the way he wanted them, my mom usually had some name being called at her or some black eye or bruise on herself. And I grew up watching that. I remember thinking, that's never going to be me, you know? If my mom, if that happens to me, I'm going to get a frying pan and hit him back, Because I thought, that was the answer to being Medea, right? And not really understanding that there was more to that, right? Not really understanding that there was more to that. I remember that I couldn't wait to go to high school. And I actually went to Millikan High School in Long Beach. And I remember that I wanted to be a high school student because there's so much independence for me. At 16, when I was in high school, you could drive a car, you could get a job. And because I was a Latina, at 16, right, at 15 you would have your what? Quinceañera, right? So that means you could date, you could have boyfriends, right? The truth was I had boyfriends right before that, but I finally told them in my quinceañera, right? So I couldn't wait for those things. I really wanted to be independent. And I think it had to do a lot with the fact that I wanted to be away from my home, what was happening in my house. And so when I started at Millikan, we had a really great soccer team. We were so proud of our soccer team, maybe because it was probably the only team that was winning, so we were really proud of it. And I had a huge crush on one of the soccer boys. I thought he was the finest thing that had ever happened, okay? And I remember that the whole 9th grade, I spent trying to get to know him, trying to be around him, trying to see what he was about, and it worked. He didn't know I was alive, so forget it, So during the summer, I must have been a real good girl, prayed to like the right saints, because 10th grade, guess who ends up being my science partner? Him. Yeah? And I was like, yes. I'll tell you the truth. Science and myself, we've never been best friends. We probably never will be. I don't like it. Don't even talk to me about it, because I'll go the other way. But that year, I was probably the best science student I had ever been. I showed up on time. I made sure my hair was done. I had pens and paper to let him borrow. I was right there, right? And he was there too, we would talk and we were friends, and he'd ask me for a pen to borrow or paper. And one day he goes, Gio, I have a question. I'm like, what's that? Can I get your number? I was like, shh, And I gave him my number and he called me that night. And I remember we talked all night long. And my mom was like, get off the phone, go to bed. And I took the phone and I hid in the closet and we talked even more. And then the next day, he showed up at my bench. Now, I don't know about you guys at school, but do you have your spot where you hang out at school? Like, this is where you meet your girls and you hang out, whoever it is you hang out with. Well, we did too. We had our bench, and thank God my friends were there for 4 years. So, he shows up. Now, your friends, they know who you have a crush on, right? So as soon as they see him coming towards us, guess what they start doing? Exactly. Instigating. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. And so he shows up and he's like, Gio, you want to go for a walk at lunchtime? And I was like, okay, yeah, let's go for a walk at lunchtime. And he's like, all right, I'll come back. He comes back at lunchtime. And I'm sure you've seen those couples at school that walk around the school during lunchtime having nowhere to go, right? Just walking in circles. That was us. And so we're walking around the school, and as we make it halfway back to where my bench was, he stops me. And he says, I have a question for you. What's going on? He's like, I want to know, would you like to be my date? And I said, yeah, of course. And so we hug and we kiss. My friends are watching this from over there, and how they act. How do you think they're acting? What are they doing? Oh my God. So we walk back, and we're holding hands, and their mouth is open. La baba caída, like my mom said. Like their mouth, they're drooling because they're jealous. And that's better for me. So now I'm his girlfriend. The next day, he shows up at my bench, and he says, Gio, now that we're together, I want you to come hang out with me. Okay? Come hang out with me at my bench, because I don't know if guys are checking you out. And if guys are checking you out, it's a little bit disrespectful. You're my girl now. And I thought, okay, that's right, I don't want to disrespect. I don't know if guys are checking me out either. So I don't want to disrespect, So I went and I hung out with him. Then he started talking about when I wore shorts. Gio, when you wear shorts and you wear tank tops, you know, you're dressing too sexy and guys at the bench are checking you out, and that's a little bit disrespectful. You're my girl now, can you wear pants, can you wear, you know, sweaters or t-shirts, you know, who are you showing off for, right? Okay, so I changed, I'm wearing jeans and t-shirt. Gio, when you wear your hair down, it's too sexy. When you wear your makeup a certain way, it's too sexy. Guys at the bench are checking you out, can you tone it down? Okay, I toned it down. Then you start saying, Gio, you know your friends, those friends of yours that have been friends forever, they're sluts. They're this, they're that. I heard it through my friends, I heard it through this. And if you go hang out with them, they're going to think you're one too. And I'm like, what are you talking about? These have been my friends since 6th grade, since 2nd grade, like we've grown up together. I know they're good girls. What are you talking about? But every time I go and hang out with my friends and I come back and I see him, he would start accusing me of things. What do you think he started accusing me of? Cheating. Yep, cheating. All the time. Constantly. And the truth is I never did. He was like the finest thing in my life, right? I wanted to be with him. So I started to ignore my friends. And it got really easy to start ignoring my friends because it would avoid fights with him. And that started to isolate myself. I started to move away and be on my own and just be with him. But right before I did all that, I had tried to talk to my friends. I went up to them and I said, hey, you know what? So-and-so, he's really jealous. He's really possessive. Or every time I do this, he's trying to control me. And what do you think about that? What kind of advice do you think my friends gave me? Leave him? What else? Break up with him? I don't deserve that? What else? Anything else? Get someone else. Get someone else. Actually, I don't think anyone ever really told me to leave them. To leave him. They all told me what I would hear was it was my fault. Well, what are you doing? You must be doing something for him to treat you this way. They blamed me. Well, you know, if you would listen to him, or if you would do that, or I mean, just back and forth. It was my fault. You're jumping? So I remember looking at them and saying, are you sure? They would also tell me this, and this is what, don't ever tell me this because it's my own, it's on my nerves. They would be like, Gio, you know what? Because he's acting jealous, that means he loves you. Oh, have you ever heard that? The jealousy? Yeah. Oh, let's watch that homework because I hate it. You know, it's not true. Does jealousy equal love? No, they're two separate emotions. And I was thinking, oh my God, they're right. He must really love me because he's really jealous, you know? And I remember listening to all that and thinking, my friends must hate me. I don't know what I was thinking. But the reality is that they were believing what they were seeing. Because when my boyfriend would come around, he was Mr. Charmer and Mr. Nice Guy in front of them. If it was cold, he would let you borrow a sweater. If there was a pizza parlor, he would all his slices of pizza and we would sit here and have some Coke and have a great time. When he got his car at the end of 10th grade, all of my friends had a ride home. So what kind of guy was in front of my friends? Nice guy. So when they're giving me this advice, do you think they're thinking about this bad guy that I'm talking about or the nice guy? The nice guy. Yeah. And I think that's where their advice came from. Well, before I knew it, we were seniors in high school. And during this whole time, he was always constantly jealous. There was one time that we were walking down the hall holding hands, and one of our friends, guy friends, said hi to us. So I waved at him too. And my boyfriend throws me against the lockers, and he puts his arms in my sweater and he starts pinching me. And if you see, I still kind of have the scars from when he was stupid. And that didn't seem abusive to me because why? Why do you think that I didn't connect that? You love him. Because I loved him, and what kind of home did I come from? It was normal, right? That pattern of behavior was normal for me. So I didn't connect it. Well, before I knew we were seniors, we were going to prom. And here we were standing in prom, getting ready to go to prom. And I remember that my cousin had showed up. And just like I isolated myself from friends, I did for my family too. I was so excited to see my cousin at our prom. He went there with a date. And I introduced them. Hey, my boyfriend. Hey, my cousin. You know, nice to meet you guys. They shook hands. My cousin's like, I'm going to go inside. I'll catch you later. And I'm like, okay, cool, right? As I come out, as we're about to go in, I'm holding my boyfriend's hand, and he's standing there really tall and really, like, strict. And he's like, if I see you talking to him in there, watch in, and he was like that. He was like an emotional roller coaster. Sometimes we were good, sometimes we were bad. But I never knew how to behave around him because I didn't know how it was going to be. So here we are at prom, having as much of a time as we could have. And I remember we were slow dancing. And as we were slow dancing, towards the end, I see my cousin walk away, leaving. And he's like, bye, I'll see you later. So I just kind of, and I keep holding my boyfriend. Well, he takes my arms from around my back, and now he's holding me, my his neck, and now he's holding me like this. As he's holding me like this, he gives himself room. And he kicked me right here in the knee. Now, if you've ever been kicked in the knee, you know how bad it hurts, right? Try being kicked by a soccer player. It's like my whole leg is just going off. I remember I fell instantly to the floor, and my boyfriend and his friend, who was dancing next to us, turned around and his friend's like, Gio, what happened? So my boyfriend's trying to help me out because I'm wearing this little quinceañera prom dress with me. And his friend was like, what happened? And before I could say anything, my boyfriend goes, babe, you tripped on your dress. So two things happened there. What happened? And what else? He hurt me, and what else? He lied, right? I was in shock. I just wanted to get out of there. I just wanted to go home. I remember I started saying, take me home. So we go home. They help me into the car. And as we get into the car and we're leaving, we're heading towards Long Beach, something happens. And I know when I say it like that, people instantly think it's something really bad that happened, but it wasn't bad like abusive. It was bad as in the partner being in the cycle of violence. But this usually happens in relationships like this after big fights. What do you think happened? Makeup. Yeah, he starts making excuses. And he starts telling me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, please forgive me, I'll never do it again, I love you, you're the one. He starts telling me about how bad of a childhood he's had and how my love has changed him and made him a better man. He starts begging me not to break up with him, and he's just going on and on and on. I mean, is that true? Did my love change him? Can I change him like that? Who can you change? Exactly. You only have the power to change yourself. But why do you think he was telling me that? Yeah. Yes, I think I'm gonna try. I didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to just go home. I remember getting home and I was there for the whole weekend. Come Monday morning, here I am standing in front of my school and I'm freaked out. I'm nervous, I'm scared. Why do you think I'm scared? Because of my boyfriend and what? How he's gonna react. And the reality was, I'm 3 weeks away from graduation. The only person I've hung out since I started high school was him. We just broke up. Who am I gonna hang out with now? What did I do to my friends? I isolated him, yeah, I left him. I felt very lonely, very scared. And I thought, well, if I don't hang out with them, who's the only other person I'm gonna hang out with? My boyfriend. And that's a huge reality for a lot of victims of domestic violence and teen dating violence. That isolation and that feeling of being alone. You become so isolated that the people your support mat, you feel that they're not there. In reality, they are still there, you just don't see it. And I remember thinking, I'm just gonna walk by the bench and see if they're still hanging out there. Sure enough, there they are. My friend's hanging out at this bench, so please don't ever leave your bench, okay? And I walk by, and I'm like, hey, can I hang out with you guys? And they're like, yeah, sure, come on in. And they're like, where's so-and-so? And I was like, oh, we broke up. And they're like, oh, well, tell me what happened. They want to know the cheese, right? The gossip. I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. So we're hanging out, and lunchtime comes, and guess who shows up with a big old thing of flowers? And I didn't want to hear it. I pushed them away. I didn't care. The next day, guess who shows up with tons of chocolates to share with everybody? Yeah. Guess who shows up the day after that? Teddy bears. Guess who shows up the day after that with love letters? All week I was getting gifts. By Friday, who was looking like a bad person? Me. Why? Yeah, they seem to be a good guy who's trying his hardest, and I'm doing what? Rejecting him, ignoring him, right? So, what kind of messages do you think my friend started telling me? Why'd you leave him? What else? You should get back with him. He's such a good guy. He loves you. You guys have been together this long. What do you think I did? Does it make me a bad person for taking him back? Statistically, it takes a victim of domestic violence 7 times before they actually leave. 7 attempts of leaving their behavior before they really will tell you that working 11 years in domestic violence, I see that pattern repeated every day. I went back and we graduated together. He went to Long Beach Dominguez, and he went to Dominguez Hills, and I went to Long Beach City. And he was playing soccer over there, and I knew that I wanted to do this. I knew that I wanted to work with the community. I knew that this is where I just didn't know how it was going to look, you know? So I started taking like human services classes and social work classes. And one day the teacher comes in and she gives us all this paper, kind of like Edie handed the paper to you. And she says, we're going to talk about domestic violence today. We're going to learn about violence in the home and characteristics and warning signs. So she was going to go over it. And I'm sitting there with this list in my hand, and I remember it said, warning signs of an abusive relationship. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then the teacher starts reading them. She's like, is your partner extremely jealous? Oh, check. Does your partner hurt you and apologize and say they'll never do it again? Check. Does your partner isolate you from your family? Check. Like, I went down that whole list and I checked it all off. And I remember I started crying, I started tearing up the glass, and I ran out because it really made me realize that I'm in this relationship, like my parents. I'm repeated the cycle of violence. I'm in the same relationship with my parents. And I stood outside thinking to myself, and I thought, if I'm ever going to be somebody in life, it's not going to be with him. You know, I'm going to have to break up with him, but how do I do it? Because I know that up until I was still with him, yeah. Up until now, I told you all the bad things that happened, but there were still good things, you know? Like for graduation, he gave me a cell phone. How nice of him, huh? Why do you think he gave me a cell phone?
So you can answer every time he calls.
Yeah. So what?
Keep tabs on
To keep tabs on me, right? I used to call it my electronic leash. Why do you think I called it that? It's that, right?
So you better answer when he calls.
Yeah, I better answer when he calls, and if I don't, who knows what's going to happen.
Was that all he contact you couldn't have?
Yes. I could have people on the cell phone, but he was checking the list. He was making sure who was calling. So I remember he would call, and he, where are you? I'm with my friends here. Let me hear. So then I'd be like, say hi, guys. And if he heard a guy's voice, he would freak out. So there was this event in Long Beach City, and it was a volunteer day, and I remember that I wanted to be there. You know, I wanted to participate. It was like what you guys are doing now. They had workshops. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be involved. So I went and I left my cell phone in my truck, and I went into the workshop, and I had a great time. The whole day went by. I didn't even think of him. I felt so free and so good. And when I come back to my car, I turn on my cell phone, all these missed calls. One after the other after the other. And then forget it, that voicemail box was full. I remember the first one, he was like, babe, how come you haven't checked in? Where are you? And the last one, he was cussing me out in every word in English and Spanish, okay? And I was like, oh my God. I kind of got happy. Because did I just have an excuse to break up with him? Yeah, I did. He's cussing me out, he's treating me bad. I'm gonna dump him. And I made up my mind that that was the day that was gonna happen. So I ignored his calls. I went home, and then when I got home, he's still calling my house, and my mom's getting mad because he's going on my house phone. So I pick up. And when I pick up the phone, he instantly hears my voice and he starts cussing me out. And I don't know if you've ever been in an argument over the phone, like, don't you feel like 10 times more powerful? Because you know they're not going to hurt you, and you're like on the other end. You guys would have been proud of me. I was so strong. And I was just, you know, I remember saying, you know what? It's over. He's like, what do you mean it's over? It's over. I can't be with you. It's over. You treat me bad and it's over. He goes, no, it's not, Gio. It's not over till I say it's over. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's over. And he's like, no, it's not. And we're going back and forth. And finally, I don't know why I think I needed validation. That's what everybody should have just hung up on him. But I knew he was going to call back, you know? So all of a sudden, I heard the phone drop. And I knew it had dropped because I could hear him far away. And now he was screaming, he was yelling, he was cussing, and I'm freaking out because I hear glass breaking, I hear destruction. What do you think comes to my mind? He's gonna hurt himself. Because what did he threaten me with? Because he actually had threatened me that if I left him, he was gonna hurt himself. So I went, and what did I just do? Yeah, I did. I did what he told me he was gonna do. So what do you think was the first thing I did? Because I thought, I'm going to find him dead. I literally thought that he'd hurt himself, he was going to be dead, I'm going to have to call the cops and explain how I killed him over the phone somehow, you know? And I remember that I get there, and this next part that I tell you plays in my mind like a movie. I remember that I walked up to his door. He rented this little apartment behind his sister's house. And I walked to his door and it was pitch black. And I remember I opened it because I didn't hear anything. I'm thinking he's dead. And I walk in and I turn on the lights that I knew were right here. And when I flipped them on, I guess I freaked him out. Because he was sitting on the couch crying like this. And when he saw me, he jumped up and he ran and he hugged me and he gave me this big bear hug. He said, babe, look, I can't live without you. You see, I told you I can't live without you. And I'm thinking, oh my God, he's right, you know. You can't live without me, what's going on? And then, I don't know what, but that's not what came out of my mouth. What came out of my mouth was like, I'm looking at this mess and I'm telling him, no, you're gonna end up hurting me. And when I said that to him, I triggered him. Because this big bear hug turned into this. And he threw me up against the door. And I remember him looking down at me, screaming, he's like, do you think I'm gonna hurt you? Do you think I'm gonna hurt you? And I'm like, no, please, okay, no. And at that point, we just begged, like, please, no. And then this turned into this. And I saw that fist coming towards me, and I just knew, it was it. And I heard. And I remember that he let go, and I heard him say, see, I told you I was gonna hurt you. I opened my eyes, and I felt this breeze right here. He punched a hole next to my head. And I saw that, I was like, and I pushed the door and I ran. I remember I ran, and he didn't chase me, but I thought he was. He ended up calling my phone, and he blowed up my phone over and over and over again. And I remember that I got home, and I was like, Mom, no, don't answer the phone. The next day, he shows up at school, and he puts all these flowers on my car, and I got smart. I had people walk me in my car, and they're like, oh, how cute. I'm like, You know, we broke up. And then he shows up at my job that night trying to take me to dinner. And I wasn't gonna have it. I was very lucky that I had a friend who was working for Women's Shelter in Long Beach, and she said, you need a restraining order. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So the next day when he called me, I threatened him. I said, I'm gonna go to if you don't leave me alone. And I don't think he really understood it. I think he didn't realize what was happening. So he stopped. He stopped bothering me. And I got really lucky that it happened that way, because it doesn't happen that way. That's not the reality for the clients that I serve. Sometimes it's a lot harder to get away. I ended up leaving and I went to go work for this little place in Long Beach called Camp High Hill up in the mountains. And when I came back down a year later, I ran into some mutual friends, and they told me that 3 weeks after he and I broke up, he had a new girlfriend. So that's my story. Wow. Thank you, ladies, for letting me share it with you. I know for a lot of you guys, you know what I was talking about. I'm probably sharing your story. You know, the reason I share it is because I know it happens every day. I know I'm not the only one, you know? And I want you to know that it's possible to leave this relationship. Alone with your children, it is possible, there is help. If you come to Women's Shelter, we have these services for you. I do a group, Edie does the group. You know, my only regret is not having said something. Because we're in our 30s now. Could he be married? Could he be doing this to his kids and his wife or partner? Yeah, right? So I share my story in that please, break the silence, talk about this, say something to somebody. So, thank you, ladies. Do you guys have any questions? Do you guys have any questions?
I have actually something to say. If you guys live in Los Angeles area, I did an internship from Peace Overnight.
Yes, amazing.
Which helps also women in domestic violence.
Sexual assault. Yeah, Peace Over Violence is another great agency that we work in collaboration with as well. I'd actually want you guys to learn a little bit more of the crime. How many minutes do we have? You know? Bust out 3 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Come on in. I'm going to pass it over because he's actually with a former police officer from Long Beach, California, and so we were talking today. And a lot of things that I get in these presentations is about the legal part. Can I report this? Is this actually a crime if I'm a teenager? So if you wouldn't mind sharing the words, that would be perfect.
Well, of course, and you know what, I was a police officer for 29 years in Long Beach, and my last job there, I was in charge of the gang unit. And, you know, with gang members, we did deal with domestic violence a lot. And what they were talking about is domestic violence doesn't mean you have to be married to somebody. In your cases, if you have a child with somebody, if you date somebody, that all fits that deal. And when we as police officers get dispatched to one of those, if there are any signs or symptoms of anything that happened, and this goes both ways, men and women. You know, the domestic violence laws are such that there's not a lot of latitude for the law enforcement guys out there to do something. Almost always, somebody is going to jail. And it's not always the guys. But what I was talking to Gio about earlier is that particularly for you moms that already have kids, and Gio was talking about breaking the cycle, because your kids grow up in that environment, see that. So you know what? You're already training them that that's how they should expect to be treated, or that's how they should expect to treat other people. It's just, that's where it needs to stop. But the thing is, again, the focus is on the crime side that somebody is usually going to jail. The courts do not take it kindly. You know, in the past, women or men would say, "Yeah, I don't really want to prosecute this." But, you know, the prosecutors still do it, and they still go on even without the cooperation. So, you know what? Choose your partners wisely. If you get out of that relationship and you get into another relationship, one of the first things, and I'm speaking from a man's perspective, if your man loves you, then he'll love your children too. And if, you know, if the indicator is that, you know, he has a problem with that, run as fast as you can. But nothing is good as going to come with that. Any questions for me? All right.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. And we have the table.